What's happening, everybody? Welcome you to the final regular season episode. Not just another. This is the final one. You're done having to hear our stupid takes in a couple of weeks, and you can go back to and enjoy just arguing about 7-on-7. Christian Pedersen, joined by Tommy Morris, who is a league champ coach. He is a TV broadcast. He's a legitimate talent, and I heard it on Twitter. Oh, I don't know if that was Tommy. Was that a specific bit that you had done for the show, or was that kind of mashed up?
That was the game recap. So
that was the game recap. Silky smooth, my man. Silky smooth. 10 out of 10. Bodie DeSilva is also joining us on behalf of Scorebook Live, the official digital content provider of all things high school sports. Bodie is slowly just pushing other people off of the raft there as he climbs his way to the top of the SBLive Sports mountaintop, until he'll be the last person. He will be the Eric Sonheimer of the next generation. He'll be the last one standing there.
Not go down that road.
Yeah, don't put that evil on you, Ricky Bobby. We've got the last week of San Diego high school football. We got the last. We are into this kind of, I call it the waterfall effect of one after the other, dominoes tipping over, whatever you want to say, of all the playoffs are starting. Volleyball has started, tennis has started, golf, lacrosse, and field hockey are next, then track. Football is amongst those sports, so we will continue to maintain football. But I will say, just a generic blank, go check out all of the schedules for everything. You can get all the tickets at GoFans. Everything is contactless and super easy to check out any of these quarters, semis, and finals for all the other sports. Guys, let's talk about football. Last week, we had what I think is maybe now on par with the bell game for the rivalry of the year, with Granite and Helix going to double overtime. We have a couple of games that Bodie sort of projected out would end up happening this week that would be for league titles. So we got a lot to talk about, but let's get to everything we saw from last week before we get to the upcoming games. Tommy, let's start with you. Any game balls, reflections, or shout outs from last week?
Yeah, I got a couple. And I think this might be the first time actually that I ever do this game ball to a player on a losing team, but the game was too good. So Max Turner, Pablo Jackson from Granite combined for 230 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. On the flip side of that game, Kevin Allen III, 248 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. I believe offhand 42 carries. I know it was 40 plus for sure, but that's a huge workload for that kid. That's one of those games you just kind of hope nobody has to lose it. But those are 2 open division teams. They might see each other again. Who knows? When we get to the playoffs. Going to Kearney, Brody Stump, 333 passing yards and 6 touchdowns. And then finally, St. Augustine, Isaiah Haston, 149 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns in their win over Madison.
Bodie DeSilva, your thoughts, reflections, game balls, or anything you wanted to shout out from the last week of
Yeah, starting off with Kevin Allen, I talked to him after the game. I'm always hesitant to talk to guys after a loss, but he's such a good kid that was happy to speak after. I mean, they've played 6 overtimes these last 2 years, and I think his main disappointment was he wanted to hurdle one of the Granite Hills players and knew with that being illegal, he was more disappointed. And he goes, I should have just done and taken the penalty, forced them to throw the flag. But what a game from him. Paco Martinez from La Costa Canyon, 9 catches, 265 yards, 3 touchdown receptions in their loss to Carlsbad. I have to give Julian Sayin some more credit. 441 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, still has not thrown an interception this year. Chris Bosch from Fallbrook, a guy we've talked about the last couple of years, 240 all-purpose yards, 4 rushing touchdowns in their win over Mount Carmel. Then Mount Miguel up next. Matthew Barton, another quarterback, over 400 yards, 412 passing yards, 4 touchdowns in their win against El Cajon Valley. And then Cash Herrera is another one, 22 of 25 for Bishops, 283 yards, 6 touchdowns in their win over Francis Parker. So some huge quarterback numbers, I think, last week in the San Diego section. I think probably the best week of the year for quarterback statistics.
Yeah, we talked about it kind of out the gate that receivers looked like they were hot, and that often translates to quarterbacks are hot. Wanted to say that we hate to spring stats and whatnot on you, but Bodie, I would be curious, like, obviously we got to come up with a minimum pass threshold, but how many quarterbacks go that whole season with no interceptions while doing, whatever it is, 100 total attempts or 125 or 75 or whatever we make that threshold? It seems like that's a pretty significant achievement for Sam.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not something that we have in the record book, but that's extremely rare. I mean, I can't remember any years since I've been covering where a quarterback is throwing the ball downfield, starting all the games, and not has 1 interception. I mean, at some point you're going to have some crazy tipped pass, something, but it just speaks to how well he puts it right where it needs to be every time.
Well, and also just like you said, the randomness of it too, like not a single ball bouncing off of a chest, not a hand tipped of a lineman or something like that. Just the skill of the receivers to, obviously the ball's being thrown pretty damn well, but the skill of the receivers to hold on to all of that. So shout out to all parts of the Carlsbad offense, creating what could be potentially another historic year for them. Let's talk about the upcoming week, guys, because we've got, some of these are outright league titles. Some of these are shares of league titles. Tommy already has a league title. He's going for a straight up undefeated league title. First game, and I think that everybody can agree that this one we did not have circled in. This was more of a circle it in pencil than pen for being this kind of set by the end of the season. But this is Del Norte and San Marcos. I think that we hoped that this would be a really good game, but but there were so many variables that we just didn't know quite what we were going to get to, especially a couple weeks in when San Marcos had some injuries. Del Norte took a first loss or two. We're here though. And Bodie set it up that he wanted this game to happen last week. So I'll give him the first crack at it. Del Norte, San Marcos. Bodie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is the game I'm going to be at on Thursday night. Outright Palomar League. We know that Del Norte is going to be the 1 seed in Division 2. And I think for San Marcos, there's reason to be excited. Their quarterback, Crete Makahele, is back. He played in last week's game. He was out with the collarbone injury, missed, a month and 12 days, but came back with 16 to 24, 3 touchdowns last week. So certainly feels like he's healthy and feels like this is going to be a game that comes down to the final possession. Both teams with very good quarterbacks, both teams with excellent junior receivers. This is one I'm really excited for. I would give the edge to Del Norte with them being at home. I think this can be a great environment, a Thursday night. Everyone kind of knows what's on the line. So I'll go Del Norte in this one.
Tommy, your thoughts?
Thursday Night Lights. We've seen some weird things. This is the biggest Thursday game that we've seen, I think, maybe this year, obviously with the league title on the line. You mentioned Jack Schneider, over 300 yards passing last week. 189 of them went to Ty Olson. That 2 touchdowns to Ty Olson as well. That was a very impressive win against Ramona. That was one of those ones, sort of like their final prove it game. And I think, yes, everyone knew they were for real, but they're sure they were like for real. And as Bodie mentioned earlier, San Marcos getting the starting quarterback back. 16 completions for 353 yards. You do the math on that. That's a lot per reception, and 3 touchdowns in that game last week. I like San Marcos in this one. You get your quarterback back. You get him one game to get kind of back into the swing of things. If you look at Crete's stats from before, I think he had close to 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was on fire until he got hurt. So if he's back to the same player he was in the beginning of the season, it's going to be hard to beat them, not only now, but also when they get to the playoffs. This is not a knock on Del Norte. I think Del Norte probably one of the favorites in D2, obviously being the 1 seed, and have exceeded a lot of people's expectations, but I got San Marcos.
The next game we got is the Bell game, and the insanity that we talked about at the beginning-ish of the season was like week 3 or 4 where we said, Brawley and Central could be a playoff or championship game because they're both going to be highly ranked. They could potentially be on opposite sides of the bracket. This one is crazy that this is happening last week of the season and could then feed into like 2 weeks later. They're back at it in the playoffs. So I'm not going to say that like you hold something back just in case, given that this is a pretty big rivalry game, but it seems like there's a lot of layers going on to this. So Tommy, you precariously have had a history with Brawley High School that dates back to you going all the way out to take pies in the face for a basketball challenge gone wrong. So I'm curious if this is like you or like Bodie and Blythe, like you just like antagonizing them, or who you think's going to win this game.
Well, last game of the season, can't hold anything back, right, Christian? Gotta get one of those.
2 teams will play at one designated field at one time.
Exactly. No, but we kind of mentioned the playoff stuff. So right now, as it sits in Division 2, Brawley would be the 7, Central would be the 8. Obviously, that's a pretty big deal because you want to have a home game, and whoever wins this one gets to jump the other one. So the points don't really matter. The way I'm looking at it now, I think Bishops may have a chance to potentially sneak in there and be like in the middle of those 2 teams if they can. But this is a huge game. So it's not only just for, like we said, the Bell, but it's also for potentially having that first round home game, which is huge, especially for these guys, huge advantage because someone has to come all the way out to come play them. It's a far drive. I like Brawley in this one. I'm not going to pick against them again. I'm not taking the pies in the face. Maybe I'll go all the way to Central if they win this game and do the same thing. But Matt Gutierrez, a quarterback, 28 total touchdowns. incredible athlete. I think this is going to be close. I think it'll be a 1 touchdown game. I think it'll be low scoring. I'm thinking 21-14 Brawley, but I do have I have Brawley win this one.
Bodie DeSilva, your thoughts on the Bell game, Central and Brawley?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this one. I did get to see Central in their opener this year, and they had an impressive comeback win to start the year against Santa Fe Christian. I'm going to go with Central at home here. I do agree with Tommy. I think this is low scoring, probably 1st to 20 wins it. Arturo Estrada is a guy that I'm looking at in this one. Has put up big numbers. I believe 19 total touchdowns in his career. He's got 7 receiving touchdowns and 2 kickoff return touchdowns this year. So a guy that can hurt you in 2 different phases there. So I like Central to sneak one out at home.
Bishops and SFC are going to square off for the Coastal League title. Both of these teams have taken losses this year. That when you look at it now that we have played all the games out, you go, all right, decently solid strength of schedule type losses. Bishops has done it with a quarterback, Cash Herrera, that has kind of matured into his own this year. So, yeah, okay, great. Wins, losses don't really count in this one. This feels like this is a solid quality decider type game. I'm curious though, Bodie, your thoughts on a Friday at 3 p.m. kickoff. Is that just to sow SFC in their favor because no one else's body clocks are tuned to that?
Yeah, this is one of those, if you're crazy like me and want to get in more than one game in a day, you can head over there, and there'll probably be some flag football headed over there because Santa Fe Christian has 5 teams too, so they got to get their field time in. Yeah, I'm going to go with Bishops here in this one. The way they've been playing lately, shouted out Cash Herrera and Top Stars last week, 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He doesn't turn the ball over, and I think that's very simple. It gets them good opportunities to score, and I think he'll continue that on the Friday.
Tommy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Cash was pretty money last week. 22. So he's 22 with 25 and had 6 touchdowns. So he doubled the amount of incompletions with touchdowns. So anytime you've done that, that's a pretty good day, I would say. Would you guys agree? Yeah, probably. Ian Brown, his favorite target on the night, 11 receptions, 169 yards, 4 touchdowns. So they have the playmakers. It's a smaller roster size, but playing against Santa Fe Christian, who also is a smaller roster size, not that big of a deal. I don't know how much this will impact Bishops if they win playoff-wise, but it will if they lose. So there is still something at stake here. I like the Knights. They are a much better team right now than they were week 1. This is a team, like you mentioned, they've matured with Cash. They've also had some players come back from injury and come back from transfers and stuff like that. So Bishops also going to be a sneaky good team in Division 2. I like the Knights.
Bishops continues to just keep screwing themselves, though, because they need to go down to like D3. To enjoy just for how size they are, but they just keep maturing and better throughout the course of the season.
I also have one more shout out. I want to give Tyler Boynton a shout out because he scored a touchdown last week. So he's their all world everything defensive tackle who will sometimes plays offensive line, and sometimes they'll let him line up at quarterback to just sneak the ball in. So it's it's a tough guy to tackle. That's all I'm going to say.
He's one of the most oval shaped people I've ever met. Dude's just a solid round mound of clayish like neck muscle and calf and everything like that. He's pretty fun to watch. Last game that we got, Scripps and Mission Bay, is a chance for a that's who we've got. Yes,
correct.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Scripps and Mission Bay, both 3-1. I'm very curious your thoughts on this one because Tommy, you have seen both of these teams. I have seen both of these teams. Bodie, I forget if you have or have not. It's a lot of weeks throughout the course of the season, but it feels like everybody in this room has a pretty good feel for both of these teams. So Scripps, Mission Bay. Let's start with you, Bodie DeSilva.
Yeah, so this is the difference here where Mission Bay slipped up last week. So Scripps comes in undefeated. If Mission Bay wins, they'll tie for the league title. If Scripps goes out and wins, it'll be undefeated city league title for them. I'm going to go Mission Bay in this one. I think coming off that loss last week, were they looking ahead? Who knows exactly what the case was, but I think that they're going to take out some of that anger, frustration, go on the road to Scripps and find a way to get this win to close out the regular season.
Tommy Morris, your thoughts?
Yeah, a very uncharacteristic loss for Mission Bay. I think maybe Bodie's right. Maybe there was a look ahead here because they were thinking, okay, we're going to have our league championship next week. Crawford's a team we should probably beat. But credit to Crawford where credit's due. I mean, they played hard. That was not like a gimme. You know what I mean? They took that game and won it. I like Scripps in this one. I think they're just a little bit bigger. And I think Mission Bay tends to struggle with teams like that. So I've got Scripps Rancher by about 14. But, hats off all around to Mission Bay. Complete. Really, they've had some great wins this season. They've surprised a lot of people. I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the playoffs, but I like Scripps here.
So guys, this coming weekend, we got one Saturday game, if I'm looking at the schedule correctly. And then by Saturday night, we've got the playoffs brackets coming out. So Bodie DeSilva is going to be your source for everything. I'm sure the SBLive Sports app is something that you should go download and all that kind of stuff. But before we get to that point, is there any more scoreboard watching? Or I feel like we kind of have a pretty decent sense, other than maybe Division II, who like the favorites are in each one of these divisions? Or is there any last minute, changes, tweaks, anything that you guys are really looking for going into this final week of games?
Yeah, I think last week cleared some stuff up with Granite obviously getting that win. I think there was an outside shot if Granite were to lose that last week that maybe they would fall down to Division I. They took care of business. They're now going to have that flip over Helix to be at least the 3 seed. I think with Lincoln having a bye this week, and Carlsbad's got a chance against a really good El Camino team to close out the regular season there. I don't know if a big Carlsbad win is enough for them to jump to get to the 1 seed. There's more math involved than I'm going to try and do at this point. But ultimately, we do know those 4 in open, and then the Division I ones will trickle down from there. I think the biggest thing I'm looking at is who are the Division I teams that can grab those top 4 seeds to get that bye, get that extra week of rest to heal up. Maybe there's an extra injury and go from there. But otherwise, I think Division I is going to be really competitive. I mean, you could give me 6-7 teams out of that group and make a case for any of them to win it. I really think so. Interested to see how that bracket fills out.
Love it. Tommy, anything that we missed? Anything you need to get to? Or
just I mentioned this because Bodie sort of touched on it, not sort of inadvertently. Like we've had so many years where there's been speculation between the teams getting the 4 and 5 seed in Division I. Is there a little bit of gamesmanship here? How's this working out? Blah, 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 blah. This is the first year where I think there's really been a clear-cut top 4. And I really think all of those top 4, anyone has a chance to beat anyone. I don't think it's going to be a runaway for any of those 4 teams. So I'm excited that it feels like it finally sectioned out the proper way. I think there was the exact right amount of teams that are going to make open. Those are the 4 that deserve it, and it'll be very competitive. And I think Division I will also be competitive. So it all worked out. So kudos to whoever had the foresight to build the playoff structure this way, because I think it worked out for the best.
Yeah, I don't want to forget a year or something like that and say just hyperbolically, this is the best we've ever seen the brackets work out. But it's certainly in the upper, 1 or 2 type years of the what is now a decade of using the open division system in some permutation or another. I believe it was 2013, 2014 was the first year, something like that.
Yeah, let me, if you give me a second, I have all these on here now.
Call it about a decade.
Correct.
This is one of the top 1 or 2 years where it has panned out evenly. And I think with the exception of 1 or 2 teams, you could even sort of make the argument that all the divisions really feel like they're pretty balanced. It's a pretty good setup this year. So, hey, suck it, all you coaches that want to change everything. The math worked out perfectly.
Yeah, 11 years, but this would be the 10th championship, obviously, with the 1 missed year. So the one thing I will add, just a couple streaks to keep in mind here. So Carlsbad has won 28 straight in league, which is a really big deal. I believe that if they get to 30, that would be second best in section history. And then overall winning streak, Lincoln keeps winning there at 22 in a row. That's second in California right now. Number 1 amongst 11 man. Granite Hills up there with 18 in a row as well. So some San Diego teams really probably gonna put their records on the line here soon, because likely be a matchup
season, right? This isn't a sport where we exclude the postseason.
Correct. This is every, because obviously in Granite's case last year, getting and Lincoln as well, getting a bunch of extra games. I believe they each played 15 times last year. So
there you go, man. How about that?
Football games.
Coach Ash and them boys out of Granite Hills really coming kind of out of nowhere low key last year to just have a sustained run of absolute greatness. We'll be back next week with playoffs and all that kind of stuff. Until then, make sure you go check out everything Bodie is doing at SD Preps or at SBLive CA or at SBLive. There's a lot of different ways. So just download the app. It's the easiest. It's the most central hub of all of it. But until then, we'll talk to you guys soon.